to be here in this game means to at least have periods throughout life where that consciousness is dim at best. So there's that level of contrast there because you may be engaging in right behavior and feeling really good and feeling that connection to the infinite, that divine connection. And then if let's say then down the line you revert to uh poor behavior, you might be able to sense that on some level of, okay, well, something's off. I wonder what it is. Maybe it's the behavior that I've done in the past. So do you think that there is that potential fluctuation in consciousness that an individual might be going through?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's the back to the story of Job. Like
Yeah.
he's like, I'm doing everything right. Things are just crappy right now. And all of his friends are like, no, 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 you've done something wrong. That's why this is happening. He's like, no, I've been doing everything right. It's just a crappy time. It's a real
Yeah.
crappy time. And I think, and then the friends don't want to accept that because that reflects this level of vulnerability of like, we can do everything right and things can still go really wrong. And it can really suck. And they're just, you're not in control and you can't just, you know, sit down and meditate and enter into bliss absolutely every time you want to, throughout your entire life. You know, there's going to be some times where you don't have that connection.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that's kind of the definition of this world, of the fallen world, is that, we suppose these realms of heaven where, we'd always be consciousness of the glory and always be just enveloped in gratitude and that stuff. But in this world, that consciousness is rare and fleeting for the most part. Um, and so I think that's there's not really anything to do about that. Unfortunately, the answer is just, well, if you have some idea, some faith in the reality of eternity, then those moments aren't going to not exist. They're not going to not be terrible, but you're not going to give up. I think that's the only difference in reality is that you'll have a little bit more metal to get you through. But even if it's not on you. You can be Job sitting on a pile of rubble, lancing your blisters and just being like, you know, no, I'm not here by my own accord,
Right.
obviously. Um, and if I wasn't religious, I'd probably hang myself, but I guess I'm just going to ride this one out. It's not really on your strength at that point. It's just the momentum of life continuing.
Just going through it,
Yeah. Yeah.
typically there's that level of faith of that, that light there at the end of the tunnel, that regardless of what you're going through in the moment, there's that larger purpose, that grander story that's being unfolded that, you might not, I always hear the analogy of, when you're climbing a mountain or you're going on a hike, of course, the end result is going to be the top of that mountain, but there's plenty of valleys and, hills, of course, a steep elevation. Um, so it's not necessarily all straight. It's not all
Right.
straight up. Um, you also say there is a minimum necessary level of ignorance to engage in the game of limitation, and thus there is an inevitable measure of suffering. And so I'm assuming, so the game of limitation would be life itself, right? Because this is a finite
Yes.
experience. Um, so the tie then is a connection between ignorance and suffering, right? Because if you knew how to solve suffering instantly or how to alleviate it instantly, then you would know then there wouldn't be ignorance. You would know
Right.
how to do it. And so and I think this goes back to what we were initially talking about towards the beginning of the chapter, and that is the importance of obstacles. So an obstacle typically presents itself because there is a level of ignorance, there's a barrier of ignorance that needs to be pushed through, like problem solving, what we were talking about. And so that suffering is induced due to a level of ignorance that you have the ability to, or that you must engage with to overcome to then break through that obstacle.
Mhm.
So I think there is that linking, and a lot of people get upset with themselves for being ignorant. Oh, I don't know how to solve this problem. This is a stupid game. I want to give up, instead of admitting, okay, this is something that I don't know. There are plenty of things that I do know, but this is a challenge. This is going to take a level of engagement. I need to put my attention and my focus on overcoming this. And that is fully engaging in reality, because that obstacle has manifested itself in reality.
Right.
So you have to then imagine breaking through that obstacle and then manifesting that action into reality by actually breaking down that obstacle.
Right. Right. And then so that lends itself to more of the idea of the practical law of sacrifice side of things, but also on the spiritual level, there are just those times where you're in the dumps and,
Right.
I mean, yes, there's things you can do, but um, there's not really, you know, again, you can't just think, oh, I'm going to pray a nice prayer or I'm going to meditate, whenever I feel bad and I'm automatically going to enter the realm of bliss every time, for the rest of my life. Uh, this goes back again to the beginning of like, we're playing Skyrim. We're not playing, uh, Fluffy Bunny Time 3 or whatever it is.
Dang
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, y- I really think this is a useful mindset of like, if we design, the movies and the games that we design and that we seek out are the gritty, terribly hard ones where the hero gets put through just the ultimate grinder, you know, and we might let our kids play bouncy, fluffy cloud jump, extraordinaire, but those that we don't want to play that. That's boring. And I think that just applies on the level of life. Like right now, when you're in the dungeon crawl, it's grim and it sucks. And you're like, why would I want to do this? But from another point of view, whether after down the line or from an eternal point of view, you're like, this is an awesome game. This is an awesome story. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be beautiful on the other end. So this brings me to a quote that I think really sums up the whole story and the whole chapter. And that's where I say, this is the mysterious way of playing the game, knowing it's a game, and yet still being fully engaged in it. So you're
Yeah.
playing the game, you know you're playing a game, but you're fully committed and engaged in the game. And that I think is the mystery of the connection between the infinite and the finite and living